I think we're on.
We are on.
Yes.
Joe Chaffee, FiOS 1 News, New Jersey, and FiOS 1 News, Long Island.
Joe Rayo, FiOS 1 News, Lower Hudson Valley, on the eve of one of the few winter atrocities that we have seen so far this winter season.
It's a good word for it. I don't know. You and I have been kind of. I could sense it. We've talked a little bit tonight, but even when we weren't talking and doing what we were working, I just get this sense that for this one, this is going to wind up probably performing more on the low end than on the higher end.
Yeah, I think
certainly given the winter we've had, how could you not expect that to happen?
Well, let's look at it from this vantage point. We had all of 1.1 inches of snow in the month of January at Central Park, and we may possibly equal that, or maybe go above that in one single day tomorrow.
And Seattle has had its snowiest February on record with 15 inches for the month so far in the last 3 days. And they picked all that up. And that compares to Boston's 2.8 inches for the whole season.
Unbelievable.
And for New York City for 7.5 or whatever it is in New York City at the moment.
Well, we cheated
but that's
in
just,
mid-November.
yeah, exactly. So that just pretty much kind of sums it up, folks. There's a couple of things going on tonight. I want to point this out with respect to what's happening both on the radar and on the satellite. And I think, Joe, these are two pretty important things. First off, there was 2 to 3 and some isolated 4-inch amounts this morning from snow that fell in southern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, down to Delaware and Maryland. And when we look at the radar tonight, well, there's a lot of snow coming into Seattle right now. Just in case you want, if the snow lovers want to know where the snow is, that's where it is. So at the moment, it's actually snowing in a band running from between Philadelphia and Trenton eastward towards Toms River and into northern Ocean County, and it's whitening the ground up in spots and a bit more. And there's a lot of moisture. If you look to the west and southwest, there's a lot of precip that's coming up. But one of the things that really struck me tonight on this satellite loop, if you look up to just to the north and east across New England and down to about Long Island, we've got quite a bit. There's dry air here. There's a big cold high up to the north. And I think one of the things it's doing is that first batch of high cloudiness is going out. So you got this dry air coming in, and it's going to, at least for a couple of hours, it's probably going to eat away at some of that precip that's there in New Jersey, which otherwise would be coming up here for the start of the morning commute. And this is a situation where a couple of hours, if it doesn't snow for a couple of hours, you're going to lose an inch or two.
You mentioned, and those of you who know how to read some of the computer guidance models may have noticed that a couple of days ago, the NAM was bringing the snow into our area by about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, the tri-state New York area. That obviously is not going to happen now, not with this dry air in place. So it'll be interesting to see how long the dry air can hold off the snow. And as you mentioned, Joe, the longer it holds it off, the less we're going to see in terms of snow accumulations, because very quickly after the snow begins falling here, coming close on its heels is going to be the changeover to sleet and ice.
Now, Joe, everybody goes forecast shopping, and they can do that online too. I don't know if you can do it on Amazon, but everybody goes forecast shopping. So here's how the Weather Service on their digital forecast, this is what they came up with. I'm going to actually, this is ending. I want to see if I got it ending. Yeah, this is 1 a.m. So let me just, it doesn't matter for us, but I just want to at least add some of the additional snowfalls up north. So we'll take it to the end of the period. It's got some 2, 3, 4-inch amounts in and around New York City, southern Westchester, 6-inch plus amounts in northern New Jersey. I don't know, Joe. I think that's going to be really, really difficult to hit if we don't get any kind of really solid radar development here overnight. Where is this going to come from? Because you're not going to have enough time.
They're talking about the possibility, well, not the folks, let's say, at Upton, the National Weather Service on eastern Long Island, which produces the forecast for the New York City metropolitan area. But on the Weather Prediction Center site, in the weather discussion, the winter weather discussion for today, it was issued during the mid-afternoon hours, they were talking about a thump of snow reaching into our area, and I think what they
and that may still be possible.
Right. Right.
That may still be possible.
Those 4-inch amounts, I think, are only going to be happening if indeed the thump does occur. If we just get a gradual, occurrence of snow here, very light snow, and then maybe steady light snow, that's still not going to give you 4 inches of snow.
What if the thump sets up closer, say, up toward Route 84, going north and west of there, instead of setting up over, say, Long Island and central New Jersey?
Well, that's certainly more of a possibility.
Yeah.
And it looks like the snow, we've talked about this in the past, instead of coming straight up from the south, this snow looks like it's going to hit that dry air, kind of curl around, so to speak, and will come in sideways, directly in from the west.
And, my numbers are lower, and they've been lower since the beginning. Where'd it go? There it goes. So this is what I came up with. And the other issue with this, Joe, is the fact that you've got the sleet. We're going to go to sleet and maybe sleet for a bunch of hours before it goes to rain.
Right.
So, how does the sleet accumulate in terms of depth and compress whatever snow's on the ground anyway?
Little balls or little irregular, pieces of ice literally falling on the snow and compressing it after a while. If you get enough of those, if you get enough hours of sleet, whatever snow has fallen initially is going to get pushed downward. And then on top of that, we have to worry about the rain that may come in tomorrow night. Although I'll tell you what, Joe, I'm beginning to wonder whether or not, up where I live, for example, excuse me, in Putnam County, we're going to get that rain. It may stay sleet through the majority of the storm.
Well, and that's another very important issue. That 32-degree line is going to have a tough time making it. It'll make it through Long Island tomorrow evening and get north of New York City, but it might not get to White Plains, say, till about 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow night, and it may not ever get to Poughkeepsie at all.
Right.
So, it is going to struggle. And we saw the last time, in the last event, how the models were shooting that 32-degree line all the way up past Poughkeepsie and Kingston, and it never got anywhere close to it.
You're talking about the end of January 20th, or January 19th and 20th. That's absolutely right. In fact, earlier that day, you and I and Brian Fitzgerald were on a conference call phone, and we were talking about the fact that the NAM brought the T1, the lowest levels of the atmosphere, up to plus 10 by that Sunday morning.
Which, by the way, it did it at the very last minute, if you remember.
Right, and it never happened.
It never happened.
And in fact, even more unusual, at 2 o'clock in the morning, that Sunday morning, the 20th, I had at my house in Putnam Valley 33 degrees. Meantime, Newburgh, which is only 20 miles away from where I was, 21.
I also noticed, by the way, on today on a late afternoon, Foose, and we should have the new one soon, it didn't, the LaGuardia bottom temperature, that T1 temperature, only got to +1 at 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's pretty low. So we'll see what it does this time around. But let's just show you. See, here's the problem, folks. Look at what happens here. We're at this is the NAM. Well, here's the thing. First of all, the NAM is wrong already because it's missing all the radar echoes that are supposed to be. I have the right one, don't I? Yeah, the 0Z Tuesday.
Yeah.
So one of the things that now here's an argument in the other direction because
back it up to 0 to 1 hour.
Okay, so we're at 3Z.
Right.
Okay, so this is what the radar, according to the NAM, this is what it's supposed to look like right now. It's got nothing in eastern Pennsylvania. It has nothing in New Jersey, whereas on the actual radar, we've got stuff there.
Right.
Okay, so right off the bat, the NAM might be missing something with regards to the precip, and
how about the 3 kilometer?
Well, we'll take a look in a second. But here's the thing with the 12 kilometer NAM. That area of snow is very narrow. It comes in and almost immediately changes over to sleet. This is at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So it goes over to sleet by 11 o'clock in the morning in New York City, and it's still sleeting there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon before finally you start to see it push a bit further to the north at 7 o'clock. But you still have all sleet in Westchester, maybe down in the North Bronx,
right.
northern New Jersey, north of Route 78. Long Island is in rain. All of Connecticut is in sleet. And, of course, you've got this sleet fest going all the way up.
Right.
The HRRR was kind of interesting, Joe, because the HRRR has a bit of a different signature when it comes to this snow area. It actually has...
See, now that's more...
This was more realistic.
Right.
And this model did handle the snows from last night better than the NAM did. And it dries it out. You see how it just kind of disappears?
Right.
It thins it out, but then you've got the second area blossoming. This has a longer period of snow. So if the HRRR winds up verifying, and again, the HRRR seems to be matching up a bit better than the NAM, then you'll probably... I'll get inside that range that we put up, and actually start to see some of the darker blue snows develop just as the sleet line is approaching here. And this is as far as it goes, which is 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Still snowing in much of the Hudson Valley. It's a sleet fest in the northern half of New Jersey, Long Island, New York City, etc., etc.
Right.
By the way, we could actually pull up a sounding here. So this is at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to pull up a sounding over New York City, roughly. And it's got a ground temperature of 30, and there's your warm nose. Right. You see where that, folks, if you follow that red line, that is going up in height in the atmosphere. The zero, this dashed line that runs up on an angle toward the upper right, okay, that's the freezing line, and on the far left are the different levels of the atmosphere. So this is up at around roughly 5,000 or so feet. The temperature goes above freezing here, and that's sleet for us.
Right.
And this ground temperature in the meantime is 30. So if we go to, let's jump to, well, 18 is as far as it goes, so we can't really look further. But if the question in your mind is maybe the changeover is not going to take place, it's taken place.
Right.
There's no doubt there.
And do they have...
They got a snow map. You can take the positive snow growth. This is for through 2 o'clock tomorrow. So it looks like it I can't see the number. Sometimes it prints a number near Staten Island. I can't see it. But that...
Let's see, that's 3. There's one at 3.
One at Bridgeport. Well, that darker shade of blue, that lighter shade of blue, that whitish area, that's 2 to 3. So this is about a 1 to 3. If you want to be a little generous, you could say a 2 to 4 type scenario if the HRRR is correct, because the HRRR does have a bit more of a robust development with the snow.
Right.
So, but this is not going to. The idea here of trying to get some kind of upside surprise out of this, I don't think we're going to see that. I think the bigger question, as you said, is the that 32-degree line, which, by the way, at 2 o'clock is sitting just right along the south shore of Staten Island and along the south shore of Long Island. The 30-degree line looks like it crosses the northern parts of New York City and the north shore of Long Island.
I honestly don't think that it's going to get much further north than White Plains. So I don't think places north.
Let's go to the 3K, the 3-kilometer NAM. We're at. All right, so this is at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. It's running right along 95, it looks like, in Westchester County. And the 3K wants to bring it up. It kind of stops it there.
Yeah.
At that point.
You remember during that January 19th, 20th weekend, they had the 850, they had the zero line, they had everything flying to our north, and it never did.
Right, and it's in this case there's a bit more cold air wedging down, so it probably stands a good chance that freezing line is going to have a real tough time getting out of the northern New Jersey counties, in the Hudson Valley, maybe even just a 287 northward might stay below freezing for a good amount of time, and Connecticut north of Route 15. Now
the one thing that is different than that weekend event on January the 19th and the 20th is that, if you remember, that Sunday morning, a lot of people were being told, get rid of it as quickly as you can, because we had that incredible wave of very cold and windy weather that moved in during that afternoon and evening, which literally froze everything solid. So everybody was trying to get rid of it before the big freeze-up occurred. Unlike what's going to happen this week, where temperatures on Wednesday are not going to be cooling down or getting frigid. They're actually going to be warming up to near 40, And by Friday, they'll be up near 50 degrees. So at least in that sense, whatever falls tomorrow, you have plenty of time to get rid of it. You don't have to worry about it freezing solid, although you would want to try to get rid of it during Wednesday or first thing as quickly as possible, because it will be going probably below freezing Wednesday night and Thursday
I'm just
night.
looking at the the new foos, Joe. So tomorrow between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. we get a quarter of an inch.
Now look at the R1. The R1 at 7 a.m., the relative humidity is 70%, and it goes to 94% by 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
So that seems to indicate, Joe, that maybe the atmosphere will be too dry to support any sticking snow until maybe at least at LaGuardia as late as 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning.
And then you got a quarter of an inch of liquid that comes down fast, and by 1 o'clock it's -2, -7. That mid layer is very cold there.
Right.
-2, -7, +4.
Right.
Okay, that +4 is a bit problematic. That's that warm nose that we looked at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wow.
And remember now, the NAM is warmer than the HRRR.
Right.
Okay, so this is the NAM's picture. Tomorrow evening, it's 0, +1, +6. So this would be either this would probably be just about turned to rain here, and another 3,700. So it does give 6,200ths of an inch of liquid during the day tomorrow. But you know, how long are you going to hold on to that cold air? The NAM seems to say that it's a quick burst of snow, whatever it is, and then a change over to sleet lasts a bunch of hours, and then it changes over to rain at the coast. The inland areas are going to struggle. Only gets to +1. That's even at LaGuardia, it only gets to +1, even though the high levels get pretty warm.
That one of my quick, hard, and fast rules was that regardless of how cold the lowest level of the atmosphere was, when the thicknesses go above, let's say, 547, usually you would expect it to turn over to snow and even eventually to a cold rain.
Right.
But we have seen cases where we've been up as high as 550 and 552.
Well, we saw that in November where that happened. But you have to have a lot of vertical motion usually, at least.
Right.
You know, you've got a lot of dynamics in the atmosphere.
Right.
You got some here, but you don't have a super dynamic setup. So, look, folks, we're on the low end of whatever numbers that are flying out around there. And by the way, and I did this last week. If you haven't looked at it, give it a look. I put it up on Facebook. I did basically a primer instructional video on the snow maps that are out there from the models, and explained what they are and what they aren't, because you can't use them as forecast tools, but especially in a situation like this where you've got sleet and freezing rain involved, and you would look at a map like that and see that spitting double-digit numbers in terms of accumulation. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Okay, that's just not going to happen.
I also like to look at the Weather Prediction Center in Washington. They put out the snow probability maps, and the probability that they had for 4 inches, at least 4 inches of snow, the 70% line was way to the north of the tri-state area, Joe.
Yeah.
We were in that zone where the probability, they were saying the probability of 4 inches of snow, at least 4 inches of snow in the Hudson Valley, ranged anywhere from 10 to 40%. So they had less than a 50-50, they were giving less than a 50-50 probability of 4 inches, even in the Hudson Valley. And so that seems to be, they may be thinking that, hey, a lot of that sleet and ice is going to hold down the snow accumulations to below that 4-inch level.
Jason Schaefer asks a question. I don't know what the answer is to this, but he asks about the, is there some kind of ratio, is there an average ratio where we can convert the liquid to sleet?
And you were asking about.
Yeah, I don't know of one.
You gave me, like you said, half an inch of liquid precipitation. If that all falls as sleet, then what does that come out to? And I said,
I don't know.
Well, I would think that the very least it would be like 5 to 1, at the very least, and it might even be less than that.
Yeah, that at least is a good starting point.
And the thing that you want sleet. If you're going to get some kind of icy precipitation, take the sleet. You don't want freezing rain, because the freezing rain will accrete on power lines and tree limbs and could bring them down. At least in the case of sleet would be these little balls or these little irregular pieces of ice that would hit the ground, bounce but not necessarily cling or accrete, at least as easily as freezing precipitation with freezing rain.
All right, so Matt Steckler asks, so let's say, he says, if there's 4 to 6 hours of sleet, and, you know, you and I have both had driving experience over the years of driving distances to get to work in all sorts of snowstorms. What does that do for the roads since the surface temperatures will be below freezing?
Well, that's a good question. If they treated the roads, it may not be, especially...
Do they have any brine left? Have they declared martial law in New Jersey, another state of emergency over this?
You know, the question is, you know, if they don't start plowing, I guess, until an inch or two of snow is accumulated.
2 inches, my understanding is,
okay, so
from my plow guys that tell me. Well, it depends on where you are. In some places it's 2, some places it's 3. So it depends. But let's say 2.
So you get that on top. So you get the sleet on top of the snow, but then they plow that away, and so now the sleet is falling on blacktop. Well, maybe it's not completely blacktop, but there's always like a residue that's left over in the wake of the plow. And that may be actually good, as opposed to allowing the sleet or the even the freezing rain to accrete or accumulate on the roadways. Just take it extra easy tomorrow. If you're going to be out and about tomorrow, just take it easy. Don't go flying around at your normal speed, because you could very easily hit a patch of ice and boom, that's it.
I mean, sleet usually you get traction from, as you do with snow. It doesn't mean you don't slip around.
Right.
And freezing rain's a whole nother issue. And of course you've got people, folks with 4-wheel drive that think that they could drive 60.
I do remember one case where there was a sleet storm and I was driving to work, and I later on I commented to somebody, it was like driving on raw rice. That's probably the best way to describe it if we get a lot of sleet tomorrow afternoon, even on some of those roadways.
All right, so we're coming up here at the top of the hour, so it's time for us to go. So stay tuned for those of you on FiOS 1 News, Long Island and New Jersey. I'll have the latest coming up in just a few minutes at 10 o'clock.
And FiOS 1 News, Lower Hudson Valley as well.
Brian Fitzgerald will carry you through tomorrow morning, and Brittany Borer and Addison Green will be here tomorrow afternoon. Joe and I will be here tomorrow night.
I can't put it any better than the way you did just now.
Okay, say good night, Joe.
Good night, Joe.